to introduce Reverend Mary Mitchell for our Sunday lesson and treatment.
Good morning. What an interesting couple of weeks we've had here at the center. Most of you know what that means. So I thought I would start out with a Nasruddin story. Nasruddin was a Sufi minister, and he was always finding himself in these eclectic positions. And there was always a little bit of humor about Nasruddin. And Nasruddin often preached at the village mosque on Fridays. And one day he was thinking, like I thought this week, what am I going to talk about? Nasruddin was like, I don't have anything to preach about. So he went in and he said to the congregation, do you know what I'm going to talk about? And they said, well, no. And he said, how could you not know? If you don't know, I'm not going to talk to you. And he walked out the door. Well, the next Friday, he went into the service and he asked the leader who was putting the service together, he said, do you know the subject of my talk today? And he's like, after last week, yes, I do. He said, well, great. If you do, you just tell him, and then he left. So the next Friday, Nasruddin goes into the mosque and he asks the leader again, do you know what I'm going to speak about today? And he's going, well, some people know and some people don't. And he said, good, then the people that know can tell the people that don't, and he walked out. And that really spoke to me this week after we had 8 months of looking for our new pastor, voted for her, gave her 76% of the vote, and we made her the offer, and she turned us down. And I thought, okay, Nasruddin. And then last weekend, we had the evangelism out back, where they beheaded Mary. They beheaded Kuan Yin and stole Jesus, and I thought, that is not good karma, you know? And so we had a wonderful rally of community here. The media could not tell the story often enough. In print media and TV interviews, the community just poured their love into our hearts. And even the local imam from the Islamic Center came by. And, you know, they have their own share of hate crimes. This wasn't a hate crime. It was just like a, hey, let's have some fun thing. But he said, after prayers every week at our center, I'm going to drive through your parking lot and just make sure everything's okay. And, you know, those type of things just warm your heart. We had a lady come in and she said, I've never been here before, but I want you to have a check for $20. It was a wonderful experience. And so I want to talk about working with the law, because what I kept telling the media is we believe that what you sow, you reap, the law of cause and effect, and that our hearts went out to the people who did the damage, because that's not going to be a good effect in their life. At some point, they'll feel regret, and it's at that point that we hope they have someone around them with enough love to help them through that process of having regret for the damage they've done. You go back there today, you wouldn't know anything has happened, but you would notice there aren't any statues around, but it still feels peaceful and loving. So we are using the book by Raymond Hollywell this month called Working with the Law, 11 Truth Principles for Successful Living. And the first 2 chapters are what my talk is about today, working with the law and the law of thinking. And I thought, wow, Nasruddin, I mean, this is like, we tell you this every week. We tell you the law of thinking, the principles that guide you and guide your life. So I was thinking, how can I help people grasp this knowledge? Because sometimes I meet or talk with someone who's been coming here a long time, and for some reason they didn't get it or don't get it. And I'm just kind of in awe of that, because I talk and think about it every day. On Friday morning, we had 20 of our members of our leadership team gather out in the parking lot for fire extinguisher training. It was a requirement of our insurance company, and I thought, oh boy, okay. And I was in awe of how much fun it was. I mean, we all got to squirt the fire, and we all got to figure out when you sweep across the fire versus going, put the fire out, and how the process is so nice. It's a real clear process, because you only have 8 seconds when you start a fire extinguisher. So anyway, we had a lot of fun with that. And after we were done, Tracy Roberti was here, and she's the one that has the twins with red-haired twins. And I said, Tracy, by the way, how are the kids enjoying school? And she took a deep breath. She said, every day they come home and I go, well, how is school? And there's this litany. I lost my pencil. I stubbed my toe. Someone took my lunch. This happened. Someone wasn't nice. And she says, okay, she's counting them up. She said, the requirement is now, if they said 5 whiny things, they have to tell me 5 good things that happened at school. And they sit there until it's done. And I thought, what a great mom. If we each did that in our life before we went to bed, what have I whined about today? And what is an equal good thing that I could think about that really happened today? And I think that's a great lesson for children, but it's also a great lesson for us. We've all experienced those days when things feel disjointed, when nothing seems to go right. And then there's those days where it just flows. And at the end of the day, we're going, what a wonderful day. Well, believe me when I say to you, it had a lot to do with your consciousness. It had a lot to do with your intent of having a harmonious life experience. And we're the ones that are in charge of that. We really are. And so when things are not harmonious, it's an indicator to you that there's a greater good that you need to know about. So when things do feel disjointed, it's like a little tap on the head. Hello. There's something here that's more better. There's some good here that you're not even looking at. I don't know how many times a day you find yourself in critiquing the world, critiquing the news, critiquing other people, critiquing the people that damaged our statues. But modern psychology says a change of thought precedes every change in our life, good or bad. A change in thought precedes every change in our life, good or bad. So it's something to consider, because some people want a shortcut. Don't you have a little 2-week class I could take and I could get this and just be on with my life? Wish we did. It's not how it works. It's been disappointing for a few people that in our Science of Mind classes, if you want credit towards practitioner prerequisites, you can't take 2 of those at the same time. That would be a shortcut. We have to evolve personally into it, and there's no way to hurry it up. I remember when Paul took 3rd year, and then I was a year ahead of him, and he wanted to take ministerial training too, so I had to wait a whole year, and it was painful, it was hard, but really it was enlivening, because I got to relive 3rd year through him, and we went into ministerial training together. So there's no shortcuts to spiritual unfolding. It takes as long as it takes, but there are all these helpful things that you can do to help you wake up to what's really going on. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added. In our belief, heaven is a state of mind. It's not a place that we hope to get to when we die. It's a state of mind, because we know when we create hell, don't we? We know when we just get angry at somebody or frustrated, and all of a sudden we're just all stirred up and nothing's right. We've created our own hell. And that's, again, the time to stop and say, wait a minute, there's something greater that needs to be known here in my mind. Dr. Amit Goswami is a wonderful physicist who lives in Oregon, and he came down here a couple years ago and gave a Sunday talk and workshop. He also talks at the Holmes Institute. And his book, The Quantum Doctor, I just dearly love, because it's metaphysics, and it's something I really enjoy. It's called A Quantum Doctor, A Physicist's Guide to Health and Healing. And here's what he says, that there are 4 stages to healing. And they kind of overlap, but he has seen thousands and thousands and thousands of healings. And he says this is preparation, incubation, insight, and manifestation. He says how we deal with mental stress contributes to our health problems. How we deal with mental stress. Oh boy, I sure understand that. How we deal with the stress in the world and how we relate it and let it upset our life or take our time away from positive thinking. So one of the things about preparation is when we get stressful, we find ourselves going faster. Do you? I've got a high energy of stress. I'm going faster, I'm hurrying, I'm worrying, I'm rushing. And so one of the first things he sees is your anxiety increases, which means your cells aren't operating normally and in a healthy atmosphere. And so to relieve that, you have to prepare, if you want health, to slow down. Preparation to slow down. So slowing down is like finding this place at your home where you feel comfortable. That place I was talking about a few minutes ago, that place where you just feel wholeness, you feel goodness, you feel love, you don't feel any anxiety. There's got to be some place in your world where that happens. For me, typically, it's on my living room couch. It's my little angel place to look out on the lake and see the mountain. But there's some place I know in your life where you can sit and just be and get that centered, preparational feeling. Because when we're receptive, we create an intention. I am receptive to healing, whether it's health, wealth, abundance, relationships, whatever it is. We become receptive. We get in that spot, and we know that there's some wholeness here. We can be receptive to it. His second step is called incubation, where we stop worrying about the options. We immerse ourselves in things like nature. We take long walks. We incubate the presence of God. We feel that, whatever it is, looking at a flower, a tree, taking a walk with your dog, observing nature. We incubate this desire, this intention, and we let it incubate within every cell of our body. So by incubating that, we stop worrying, and what happens when we stop worrying is our mind opens up to possibilities. Because when we worry, we don't see a lot of possibilities. But when we are incubating ourselves to be open to God's love, we're opening to greater possibilities. The third stage, he says, is insight. And when we're open to new possibilities, we hear different things from different people that we wouldn't have heard if we were in the state of worrying. We may pick up a magazine and see an article that we wouldn't have read before because we weren't open to it. And so our insight opens, and that shifts our emotions. And this is the place he finds spontaneous healing. This is the place. We've prepared for it. We've incubated ourselves. We're open to it. We're open to insight. And when we see some insight, oh my gosh, I didn't think of that. And now I see there can be a different way. I want to read a story about this from his book, and it's one that Deepak Chopra talked to him about. And I'm going to have to, unfortunately, little type, put my glasses on. A quiet woman in her 50s came to me about 10 years ago complaining of severe abdominal pain and jaundice. Believing that she was suffering from gallstones, I admitted her for immediate surgery. But when she was opened up, it was found she had a large malignant tumor that had spread to her liver, scattered in different pockets throughout her abdominal cavity. Judging the case inoperable, the surgeons closed her up without further action. Because the woman's daughter pleaded with me not to tell her mother the truth, I told her that the gallstones had been successfully removed, and I rationalized that her family would break the news to her at a later date. 8 months later, I was astonished to see the same woman back in my office. She returned for a routine physical exam. No jaundice, no pain, no detectable site of cancer. Only after another year that she came in, she confessed something unusual to me. She said, "You know, doctor, I was sure when I had cancer 2 years ago, and I was surprised that it was gallstones. I told myself, never will I be sick another day in my life." Her cancer never returned. This woman used no technique. She got well through her deep-seated resolve, and that was good enough. I call this a quantum event. because the fundamental transformation that went deeper than organs, tissues, cells, or even DNA, directly to the source of the body's existence, was in time and space. That's that place of deep insight. No, you don't have cancer. You just had gallstones and now they're gone. Isn't that awesome? I love that story. The final stage in his 4-part process here is manifestation, a lifestyle change that supports the new awareness where we reestablish ourselves back in balance. Our body's in balance, our life is back in balance. There's a story of a news reporter who listened to Mahatma Gandhi one day, and he was watching Gandhi talk for a long period of time without notes. Someday I'll get there. Later, he asked Mrs. Gandhi about it. How can he do this? And she said, well, you know, we're ordinary folks. And the thing about Gandhi is he thinks the same way, he talks the same way, and he lives the same way. His whole life is congruent. That's that 4th step, manifestation, stabilizing the creative process in our life. So as we say, we walk the talk, we think the talk, we live the talk. One of my favorite authors is also Dr. Raymond Charles Barker, as you know, good old Barkerisms. He wrote many books, one of which, The Science of Successful Living, and he reminds us that the world has never been improved by pessimism. And yet how many people think it's important to be pessimistic because things look so bad, so gloomy out there. But he says life is complicated. It really is. But there's an orderly progress to life. There's an orderly progress because there's a divine intelligence behind it. And the right mental attitude can make all the difference in the world. It can turn this pessimistic look at life into a grand adventure if we stay focused on it. Here's one of Barker's affirmations, and I'd encourage you to say this after me. There is a power in me, acting through me, and acting for me, which causes me to accomplish what I want. There you go. There you go. Ernest Holmes said, at some point we will wake up and really understand that we've learned all we needed to through unhappiness and pain. We've learned all we needed to through pessimism because it's not creating anything positive in our life. And so changing our thinking is very important. Dr. Barker wrote a beautiful treatment on page 37 of his book that I will share with you. Whoop. I now dedicate my whole area of mind to the divine purpose of creative living. I refuse to be an average person with mediocre results in my life. Can't you just hear him? God placed within me the genius of spirit. I'm no longer in bondage to the past, either mentally or emotionally. Every limited pattern in my subconscious mind is now obliterated by this treatment, which is the Word of God. I consciously think new and greater ideas, and these are subconsciously now the cornerstone of my thinking. Therefore, through the action of God in me, there now appears in my world increased good in every form. I would love to have heard him say that, wouldn't you? It's very powerful presence. Sometimes when we talk about truth here, you think, okay, I understand truth, God is all there is. And we talk about principle, yeah, God is all there is. But I want to share with you some spiritual principles that I've put on 2 sides of this green piece of paper that are on the question-answer desk. I'll just read a few of these, because there's a lot more spiritual principles than you really thought existed. All things are possible with faith. As we give love, we attract love in return. Expectancy improves progress. God does not know illness or harmony. God is the only power there is. God's life can never be diminished, and God's life is the only life there is. I am in the right place at the right time with everything I need. Life will be to you what you are to it. So pick up one of these. And when you think, I know God is all there is, but it's so much more. So I put these on this sheet for you this morning. And I'd like to close with another Nasrudin story. I just love Nasrudin, and this is a cute one because Creating a good life depends on our thoughts and our creative expression. But one day, Nasrudin was hanging around with his buddies at the coffee shop, and they were talking about death. And so they said, okay, everyone, here's the question. When you're in your casket and all your friends are coming by and looking at you, what would you like to hear them say? And one of his friends said, I'd like to hear them say that I was a good doctor and a great family man. Another said, I'd like to hear that I was a wonderful husband and my children were treated with love. And Nasrudin says, I'd like to hear them say, look, he's moving. So the moral of the story is to never give up, never give up. You can have a better life if you accept a better life for yourself. So join me in a treatment for that knowing. This is a good day because it's today. It's the only day there is in the moment. Yesterday is gone and tomorrow is yet to come. So all we have is this moment. And in this moment, with a little laughter, we feel joy in our hearts. We feel that spark of love for not only this teaching, but for each other. And so today, as I learn to use principle in my life and expand my idea of principle and what it really means, I know greater good is mine. It's mine by divine right action. It's mine by acceptance. It's mine by preparedness. It's mine by openness. And in that way, manifest my good. I give such great thanks for this teaching, for the teachers, for all who listen and implement these principles in life. I give such gratitude for all those struggling with this, knowing that in our hearts, as we improve our lives, their lives improve also. So as together we create a world that works for everyone, we focus on a world that works for us, knowing that that light will light up the world. This is the truth, and you are the ones, and I give great thanks, and so it is. Thank you.
To speak to us about working with the law.
Good morning. Great choir. Oh, we're glad you're back. That was beautiful. Really pretty. This has been a couple rough weeks here at this center if you haven't been paying much attention. We spent 8 months looking for our new senior pastor and 18 candidates and interviewed and brought the two here in July, and they both spoke, and you voted, and she got 76% of the vote, and we excitedly called her, and she turned us down. And it was, there were no words. It was like, how did that happen? Anyway, it was for her right and perfect. And then last weekend we had the vandalism in the gardens, and it's, statues are statues, but when you see Mary beheaded, there's just some guttural reaction. It's not nice. It just doesn't feel good. And I was telling the reporter, I said, when you behead Mary and you behead Buddha and you steal Jesus, this is bad karma. And so, but we were very excited. We were very pleased about all the media attention we got because it touched people's heart deeply. Every media outlet was here, and video and TV and record search site. It was just great. And during the week, people would just drop in and say how sorry they were. And the imam from the Islamic Center came by, and he said, we feel so badly for you because we know what it feels like to have people denigrate things you think so important. He said, every week now after our prayers on Wednesday evening, I'm going to drive by your center and go through the parking lot and make sure everything's okay. Isn't that sweet? He's a wonderful guy, Abu. Very nice. Oh, it makes me want to tear up. So a lot of good things have happened too. So when I got this topic in this book, it's like the law, working with the law. We talk about that every Sunday. I'm like, oh God, it's boring. So I thought, I've got to start off with a Nasrudin story. Now, if you don't know who Nasruddin is, he is a Sufi minister, lived many hundreds of years ago, but he always ends up in these odd, eclectic things that bring a smile to your face. And so I wanted to share a Sufi story from Mullah Nasruddin, who preached at the village mosque on Fridays. One day, he couldn't think of anything to preach about, so he went in and he asked the congregation, "Do you know what I'm going to talk about?" And they said, "No." And he said, "How can I talk to such an ignorant group of people?" And he walked out. Then the next Friday, he came into Friday's service and he asked the leader of the congregation, "Do you know what I'm going to talk about?" And he said, after last week, "Oh, yes, I do." "Well, then you go tell them and I'll leave." So the next Friday, he goes in and he talks to the leader, and he said, "Do you know what I'm going to talk about today?" And he said, "Well, some of us do and some of us don't." He said, "Good, then you have the ones that know talk to the ones that don't. I'm going home." So I will not do that to you this morning. But that's about how I felt after the vandalism. It was like, how can I talk about the law? How can I make this sound like fun? But his book, Working with the Law, 11 Truth Principles for Successful Living. And it's about the law of thinking, because we're all thinking. I hope you're thinking this morning. There probably aren't too many times in your day when you're not thinking. And our thinking has this energy with it that eventually enters our subconscious mind as a belief. And our scattered thinking may end up as a scattered belief. And so thinking is very important, because what we're trying to grasp is the power of our mind to create experiences in our life. Friday morning, we had fire extinguisher training here. Invited all the leadership team, and the fire extinguisher guys came, and we all got to shoot the fire extinguisher, and it was really fun. I learned the importance of sweeping the fire extinguisher over the flames versus going, and fanning the flames. So that was very good. But afterwards, I was talking to Tracy Roberti, and she's the mother of the two redheaded twins. I said, "How are the kids enjoying school?" And she took a deep breath. She said, "Well, every day they come home with a litany of things that didn't go right. I stubbed my toe. I couldn't do this. I lost my pencil. Da, 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 da." And she says, she's counting. And she said, "Okay, I heard 5 things that didn't go right today. So before we go any further, I want to hear 5 things that did go right. And we'll sit here till you think about them." And she makes them come up with 5 things that went right. And I thought, what a wonderful parent. Who would have the patience to do that? Plus to count, and then to say there's got to be as many good things that happened to you today as didn't. What a great thing for children to learn. So that was good for me to hear. Vandalism and no new minister. That's all right. We're flowing with it, because we all have those days where it feels really disjointed. It doesn't seem to go right. But then we have a day where everything just flows, and we think it's just by chance, and it's not. We had something to do with that. We, in our deepest mind, had something to do with that. And so what we learn is there's more to this than what we often think about. And in this teaching, we always talk about principle, the law, the law, the law. It always works the same all the time. And you probably know God is all there is. What you believe, you achieve. What you think about comes back to you, all these things. But there's more to it than that. And so I spend time listing out a couple pages of principles. I bet you didn't know there were this many. There really were 3 pages, but I only did 2 for you. Double-sided, they're back at the Q&A table. All cause is mental. All that God is, I am. Human life is the expression of individual consciousness. In God, there is only wholeness. Life will be to you what you are to it. There are all these principles. So when you think, I think I got it, God's all there is. Oh, there's much, much more. There are no mistakes in God's world, and God's world is all there is. So pick up one of these on your way out. I think you might enjoy it. It's what we focus on as a practitioner in our 3rd step of treatment, the truth about you. It requires exact thinking. And I mean that, exact thinking, very clear, exact thinking, because what we're trying to do is get our life back in balance. And so being very clear is very important, as Proverbs says, as a man think in his heart, so is he. But thinking is so creative, it's so powerful that we often forget, oh, I've just been thinking all day and haven't thought much of anything positive or life-affirming. Modern psychology has demonstrated that thought precedes every change in your life. A thought comes first before anything ever changes in your life. A thought comes first before anything's invented in life. So thoughts are a lot more important than what we give them credit for often in time. I sometimes meet people and they say, well, don't you have like a 2-week class that I can get all this out of? No. No, that's not how it works. Because if you just try and take a shortcut to God, you're going to still end up blaming people for anything that happens in your life. And because the attributes of the good life are those attributes of God: peace, power, plenty, beauty, joy, all those things. And that's where the mind should be more focused at any point in time. Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added." Well, in this philosophy, we believe heaven is right where we are. Heaven is here today if we choose it to be. Because remember the last time you got angry and you created hell? Remember how that felt? It didn't feel really good. So all it takes is this shift in thinking to create heaven, to recreate heaven right in our own life. One of the leading physicists in the world is Dr. Amit Goswami. He visited here a couple years ago. He lives in Oregon. And he's a renowned physicist and quite a student of how physics and God are all related. He also teaches at the Holmes Institute, and I know Tara has taken a couple of courses from him. Very, very bright man. His book that I was reading yesterday, The Quantum Doctor, A Physicist's Guide to Health and Healing, and here is what he says, that creative process is always at work in you. How do we know that? Because you're always thinking. We know that. But he found there are 4 steps in this process that lead to healing, whether it's healing your body, your mind, your relationships, level of abundance. There's these 4 steps, and they kind of overlap each other, but you'll get a sense of it. The first thing he says is when we deal with mental stress, we just create quite a mess if we don't let go of that. And what mental stress does is it makes us go faster. Did you ever notice that? Got to get this done quicker. All of a sudden we're running and we're watching ourselves running. It's just an amazing thing. And we start worrying and our anxiety increases. So this is not a very fun place to be, but I recognize when I'm there at those times. I've been there many times in my life. But he said the first thing that we can do is preparation for healing. And in preparation for healing, what he says is we just decide to slow down. We just can't keep going on this treadmill this fast. So preparation is slowing down. And what happens in the slowing down place is that we start to get receptive to maybe ideas that we couldn't even consider when we were in that narrow field of anxiety. So this is the preparation, slowing down, and then all of a sudden our mind starts to open up a little bit, and we start to maybe see things that we couldn't see before. Then he says the next place is incubation. So we're still in that place, but we're immersing ourselves in beauty. We take a walk on the river trail, we sit in a garden, we listen to beautiful music. So we've slowed down, and now we're incubating peace into our life. And when we incubate peace, all of a sudden more possibilities start showing up than we ever dreamed, because we're one with that nature, one with that love and beauty of God. It's a beautiful place, and I know you've been there before. I've been there before, and it feels really, really good. Something may be trying to pull us back to the tension and anxiety, but oh man, when I'm incubating in my garden or sitting there and just observing clouds or whatever, some possibilities start showing up that I hadn't anticipated. And the next step is insight, because as we start to open our mind just naturally from just sitting there in beauty, our emotions start to shift. And as we let go of that anxiety, more positive energy shows up. This is where he said most spontaneous healing occurs. That he's experienced thousands of cases, most spontaneous healing occurs at this level of insight. Incredible insight. So I want to read you a story that he has in his book, and you might have heard it before, but that's okay. And I have to wear my glasses. It's the aging thing. I love it. I love aging. I love it. It's wonderful. Okay. A quiet woman in her 50s came to me about 10 years ago complaining of severe abdominal pain and jaundice. Believing she was suffering from gallstones, I had her admitted for immediate surgery. And when the doctors opened her up, they found she had a large malignant tumor that had spread to her liver and scattered pockets of cancer throughout her abdominal cavity. Judging the case inoperable, the surgeons closed the incision without taking further action. But because the woman's daughter pleaded with me not to tell her mother the truth, I informed my patient that the gallstones had been successfully removed. I rationalized that her family would deal with the rest of it later. But 8 months later, I was astonished at the same time when she came in my office to return for a routine physical exam. She had no jaundice, no pain, no sign of cancer. Another year went by, and she came in and she was perfectly healthy, and she confessed to me, "Doctor, I was so sure I had cancer 2 years ago, and that when it turned out to be just gallstones, I was so relieved. I told myself I would never be sick another day in my life, and the cancer never returned." This woman used no technique, though her deep-seated resolve, that was good enough. I call it a quantum event. The fundamental transformation went deeper than her organs, her tissues, her cells, or even her DNA. It went directly to the source of the body's existence in time and space in God. That's how powerful you are. If you forget, come and ask me. So the last stage in Dr. Goswami's 4 stages of healing is manifestation. And this means that we manifest a lifestyle change, because we can't go back to doing the way we were doing before. And it's a lifestyle change that supports our new awareness. It stabilizes us. It stabilizes the creative process. We get back in balance. And of course, it's important to stay that way. There was a story years ago of a news reporter who listened to Mahatma Gandhi, sorry, Gandhi, that listened to one of Gandhi's lectures. And he was just in awe that he gave his talk without notes, unlike me. It's one of my goals. And he asked Mrs. Gandhi afterwards, how could he give such a profound speech without notes? And she said, well, you know, most of us ordinary folks, we talk this way, we think this way, and we do this way. But he does everything one way. He is in balance. He walks the talk, he lives the talk, he lives his belief system. That's why he can talk. That doesn't reflect on me. Why did I say that? I'm finding balance. Isn't that funny? Okay. Kay's going to have to be my mentor in walking around without notes one of these days. Dr. Raymond Charles Barker, one of my favorite authors, wrote the book, many books, The Science of Successful Living, and he's always so clear. Life is complicated. Life is challenging. We can't get around that. Of course we can get around that. We get around it by an orderly process of creating our thoughts and beliefs in our own system, that we create our life experience. And so he said you can have it be very difficult and very challenging, or you can have an outrageous adventure in life. It's up to you. So here's one of Dr. Barker's affirmations, and I invite you to repeat after me. There is a power in me, acting through me, and acting for me, which causes me to accomplish what I want. Doesn't that feel good? It's the truth. And of course, Dr. Barker had a booming voice and a kind of in-your-face personality, so you really felt it deeply when he said that. And our own Dr. Ernest Holmes, he wrote, when will we ever wake up to the realization that we've learned all we need to through pain and suffering? And I think we're ready. I'm ready, and I hope you're ready, because we can change what we're thinking. We can't do anything about most of things in the world, but we can do something about the way we think about them. It's humanity learning to get along with each other. It's people learning how to love, people learning that they are the source of their experience, and some people aren't learning it very well. But we can be the light by doing that ourselves. There's a treatment in Dr. Barker's book that I thought you might like, and it's on page 37. And I'll try to give it a little power. I now dedicate my whole area of mind to the divine purpose of creative living. I refuse to be an average person with mediocre results in life. God placed within me the genius of spirit. I am no longer in bondage to the past, mentally or emotionally. Every limited pattern in my subconscious mind is now obliterated by this treatment, which is the Word of God. I consciously think new and greater ideas, and these now subconsciously are the cornerstone of my thinking. Therefore, through the action of God in me, there now appears in my world increased good in every form. That's Dr. Barker. He's very, very clear. But he also said something cute. He said, you know, someday your mind is going to be 90 years old. And your body will be too, but your body's going to look a lot different. But you're still going to have your mind. So we can go into aging with a 90-year-old whiny mind, or a 90-year-old mind that is what you are today. And we can do that. We have the power to do that. And so when we whine about getting older with these owies and wowies, we're not helping things, because we have a power to turn back that calendar and keep our mind fresh and alert and creative. So I'd like to close this with another Nasrudin story, and it's called Last Wishes. Nasrudin is in a coffee shop drinking coffee with his friends, and they're discussing death. Great topic as you get older. No, it's not part of the story. No. The question was, if you're laying in your casket and your friends are coming along, of course saying how good you look, what would you want them to say about you? And his first friend says, I would love to hear them say that I was a good doctor and I was a good family man. The second friend said, I'd like to hear that I was a wonderful husband and wonderful father to my children. And Nasrudin thinks and he says, I'd like to hear them say, look, he's moving. Oh, that's the power of positive thinking, isn't it? That was great. That's good. Nasrudin's wonderful. So join me in a moving treatment. Join me in a prayer for totally knowing, understanding, and loving the creative process in your life. Something like that. I do believe this morning we're moving forward, alive and moving forward, with this understanding of our own personal power, that we've been gifted with this creative process that is more than we ever expected it to be, more than we ever thought it would be. And so today, as we embrace that and embrace the power within, only good can come of that, because everything is seen in a new light. There are opportunities everywhere. For healing the mind, body, spirit, there are opportunities everywhere. So as we go with Dr. Goswami's 4-part process of preparing and incubating and totally being immersed in the nature of God, all things are healed. This is our life, and this is the truth, and this truth sets us free every time. Thank you, God, for this time together, for the truth that has made us free, for the principles we now accept as true and exact for us. And so it is. Thank you.